Hello everyone and welcome to the 10th video in the series of videos which will help you complete the Level 2 Essential Skills Wales ICT qualification. Now, what we did in the last video was created a search log where hopefully we saved lots of images and they're ready to go into the presentation. Now, as I said, you need to create a draft presentation, and when I say a first draft presentation, I mean we don't really include any formatting really of any kind. So we take it as all the default settings. So if I insert text to put as a title, for the title of my presentation is Kitchen Upgrade, I can make the font a bit bigger, but that's really as far as I'm going to go with formatting the text. Again, I've just got some small text down here. So what you want to do is show that you've understood that your first draft is not really appropriate, not fit for purpose, and then in the second draft you really go all out and make those improvements. Even though really usually on your first draft you would give it a really good effort, we've got to show the examiner that we've understood the process of design to the final product. So this is my basic presentation, and I'm not really going to tell you how to create your presentation. You've got a lot of experience in PowerPoint. You should just be able to get the images, get some text in there, and create a decent presentation if you were going to pitch to an audience. So one of the first things that we're going to look at, okay, is just briefly some of the information I've got. Now you need to make sure that you only use about 5 slides maximum. I would say try and use 5 slides. That way you can get all of the skills in there you need to, but it's not going to take you too long. Also, you need to consider that this is a presentation, not like a brochure or a leaflet where there's lots of text, maybe a bit more text than images really. It should be about equal amounts, so there's not too much text on each slide. Okay, and remember, it must include this information that you found out from your spreadsheet, because if it doesn't, the examiner basically will fail you based on that, because the 2 tasks in activity 1 should be interconnected. So what we're saying is we found the prices, we've put them in the presentation. Okay, and this is just the breakdown of the costs. Now remember, this could go on your first slide. You could do anything you want. You could get lots of images of the furniture that you found, and you could put them in and talk about why you chose one and maybe why you didn't choose the other. Maybe it could be based on price. It's up to you. But you've got to create a 5-slide presentation and keep it basic. Now, a few things I'm going to be showing you in this video is, one, how to actually create bullet points. I know you should know how to do it, but I'm going to explain how it works. You should also be able to insert a basic table. We're also going to look at how to use navigation buttons, and we're also going to be looking at your page numbers, or your slide numbers I should say, and then finally how we take the graph or chart from the spreadsheet. So then, in your presentation, I'm going to show you those few skills that you need and must include in your draft presentation. So if I just get rid of these 2 here, I'm going to drag this notes area down to give myself a bit more space on the page, and drag this over there. So now I've got a nice space to work with. So first of all then, let's look at bullet points. Bullet points, although quite obvious, there are a few rules that you need to remember. First of all, in the draft, they must just be the basic bullet points that you get as the default setting. So I'm going to put in there, improving the kitchen would be beneficial in the following ways, just as an example. So I'll put my colon in there because I'm starting a list, and now I'm going to insert my bullet points. So I'll click on bullet points up here, and remember you can choose different types, but we're going to keep them as basic at the moment. And what I'm going to say is create a more social environment. I could say adds value to the house, improves hygiene, and I'll leave it at that for now. But it's just to create a basic list. So then, remember, if you are going to do bullet points, don't just do 1 bullet point on 1 line, because there's not really any need to use a bullet point there. The examiner will be looking for a list. And as I say, the list could be just 3 lines long as I've got there, but it must be more than, I'd say, 2 lines of text. So that's how we do bullet points in this particular instance. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert a new slide. Let's right click on this slide and new slide. I'm just going to get rid of these two here because I'm going to create it on my own. And in this slide, what I'm going to be showing you how to do is insert a table. And there's many reasons why you might want to insert a table, but we're going to keep it very, very basic. So I'm going to insert a table, and I'm just going to have one single column and rows like this. So I could say items that I have looked at. And then down here I could have in there, say, I'd say kettle or kettles, microwaves, and putting that on the same line at the moment. I need to go down into the next cell. Microwaves and washing machines. And as it is, just leave it like that. That's the basic formatting. Okay, so there's your table. The examiner can see that it's the very basic table. There's no borders around it or anything like that, so it is very basic. That's your table. The next thing that we want to do is, I'm going to go to a new slide here. Keep doing that, old habit. So I'm going to new slide. I'm going to delete these two, and I'm going to insert a picture. And let's go to, I don't know, I'll put a smiley face in there. Just something that was something I downloaded for one of my Year 7 lessons. So a smiley face. There we go. There's my smiley face. So I've got 3 slides now, and what I'm going to show you is how to use navigation buttons, or how to create them, and it's really, really very simple. So what you've got to think now is you're on your first slide, and what I'm going to do is create a shape, a rounded rectangle. And I'm going to hold shift when I drag it out to keep it perfectly square. If I let go of shift, you can see that I can make it a rectangle. But if I hold shift, it turns it into a perfect square. So there we have my button. And I'm going to call that one. I don't have to right click or anything to put text into it or add a text box over the top. I click on the shape and I just start typing the word next. So remember, I need a next because, I tell you what I'll do, I'll put this on my first slide, so I'll cut it and I'll put it onto my first slide, so I'll cut it and paste it. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to insert an action to it, so I click on the shape and I go to the insert tab. I go to action and I go to hyperlink to. Now I can choose here, remember this is on mouse click, I can choose anything here, previous slide, first slide, last slide, I can choose a specific slide, but what I'm going to do is choose next slide. Then I'm going to choose highlight on click and I'm going to press OK. Now see now that if I click it, it goes on to the next slide. So just press escape to close that down. And what we need to do now is we don't need a previous button on this particular slide because there's nowhere to go previously before the first slide. But I'm going to put the next button onto the next slide. So if I copy it, copy that whole shape, what it's going to do is carry over the settings that I applied to it as an action button. So what I could do now is I'm going to say, right, okay, well what I need now is actually a previous button. And the best way for me to do this to get it lined up exactly the same size is to create a copy. So I'm going to right click, copy, right click, paste. And I'm just going to line that up next to it. And I'm going to delete that text. I'm going to call it previous. But obviously, as you can see now, okay, that it doesn't actually fit. So I'm going to have to decrease the size of the text if I go to the Home tab and make it a bit smaller, like so. And if you want it to match up perfectly, you can do by clicking on Next and dropping the font down to the same size, just so that it looks a bit better. But I do need to change the settings on this button. So if I double click it and go to Insert, I go to Action, and I can choose Hyperlink to. Click on the drop down menu, and this time it's going to be previous slide. Highlight on click is still selected, so I press OK. So if I press my F5 now to start the presentation, I click Next, and if I click Previous, it'll take me back. So what I need now is to actually have a previous button on this particular slide here. So I'll click on previous, I'll right click to copy it, click on slide 3, right click and paste, and it'll put it in exactly the same position. So now I've got a way of interacting with my presentation and going through however I want to. So I can say next, next, I'll go previous, next, previous, previous, and I can go back to whichever slide I like rather than using the arrow keys. So that's a good skill there. The next thing that I want to show you how to do, the last skill that's involved, and remember, you've got to build this around your own presentation because it's got to be your own design. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is insert, and I'm going to insert the slide number. And what I'm going to do is just go down here to the slide number option and select it. And it shows me where it's actually going to be shown in the presentation, and I'll just press apply to all. So now if I click on my slides, you can see in the bottom right hand corner the slide number has been applied. So those are a few skills that you must include in your presentation. Obviously you've got to put images and your own appropriate text in there, that's absolutely fine. It must be 5 slides, but you must include these skills that I've shown you in this video. It's just the interactive buttons, slide numbers, a table, and also bullet points. But remember, we've got to keep this very, very basic so you can keep it like that.